Last time we talked about the blanket. We talked about the earned win and how a well timed happy ending, not that kind, like the ones in The Goonies or Shawshank Redemption, can act as a battery for the human spirit. It's vital and it's beautiful. But let's be honest, you can't navigate the real world with only a blanket. Sometimes the most honest thing a writer can do isn't to save the hero, but to let them fall. And to do that, you need a scalpel. So here we are at part 2 of an autopsy of endings, the tragedy, or why did I just pay $12 to feel like my soul was put through a wood chipper? There's this common misconception that tragic endings, like for instance the ones you see in Seven or Midnight Cowboy or The Mist, are just mean-spirited, that the writer is some cynical prick who wants to ruin your weekend. But if we perform a proper autopsy, we have to look past the blood and the guts. A tragic ending isn't about being mean, it's about being honest. If the happy ending, like Cars or Rudy or even the chaotic victory of Fight Club, is about belief, the tragic ending is about consequence. It's the story's way of saying, I respect you enough to tell you the truth about how this specific path ends. In the last video, I threw out some $5 words. Well, I've got a few more, like hedonia, which is the easy stuff. It's the dopamine hit of Independence Day or Karate Kid. It's pleasure. But eudaimonia, on the other hand, that's the eudaimonic reward. It's Greek for human flourishing, and in narrative terms, it's meaning. So when a tragedy hits correctly, think Chinatown or Brokeback Mountain, you aren't happy necessarily. You might even feel miserable, but you feel expanded. You feel like you've touched a high voltage wire of human experience that a happy ending just can't reach. The happy ending gives us the world as it should be, but the tragedy gives us the world as it is, and it dares us to do something about it. So if you're ready to put away the blanket and look at the sharp edge of the blade, let's see how we got here. For 30 years, the Hays Code, which we covered in part 1, was the industry's safety rail. It was a moral straitjacket designed to make sure that you never fell too far. It guaranteed that even if the hero took a beating, the world was ultimately a just place. We saw it in the corrective ends of movies like The Bad Seed or The Postman Always Rings Twice, where the universe acts like a cosmic bouncer tossing the bad guys out of the club. But by the late 1960s, the world didn't feel just. It felt like a fever dream. In 1969, Easy Rider blew the doors off the hinges. It didn't end with a wedding like it happened one night or a medal ceremony like Star Wars. It ended with two guys getting gunned down on the highway for no reason at all. No moral compensation, no lightning bolt hit the shooters like the kid in The Bad Seed. This was the birth of the new Hollywood, a generation of movie brats like Coppola, Scorsese, or Polanski, yuck, who realized that the most radical thing they could do was let the audience leave the theater feeling terrible. I mean, look at the bleak finality of The Graduate, or the hollow victory of The Godfather, or even the everyone is a zombie nihilism of Night of the Living Dead. But the crown jewel of this era is Chinatown. Jack Nicholson's character Jake is the classic detective. In a Hays Code world, he wins. He saves the girl and puts the villain in handcuffs like a corrective end in a 1940s noir. But Chinatown doesn't give you that gift. The villain, Noah Cross, wins. He gets the money, he gets the girl, and he gets away with murder. So why do that to an audience? Well, because if Jake wins, the movie is just a story. You go home, you sleep well, and you forget it. But because Jake loses, the movie becomes a permanent warning. It forces you to confront the reality that sometimes power beats truth. It leaves a moral sting in your soul that sticks with you for years. Now, of course, these guys in the 60s and 70s didn't invent the sting, they just dusted it off. 2,000 years ago, Aristotle was already performing autopsies on Greek plays, and he came up with the word catharsis. He argued that we need to see pity and fear on stage, in movies like Sophie's Choice or $1 Million Baby, so that we could purge those emotions from our own systems. It's like an emotional lancing of the boil. We watch the tragedy not to get depressed, but to feel vividly alive. We've always needed stories that hurt, because a world without tragedy isn't a world that's safe. It's a world that's delusional. And as any doctor will tell you, you can't heal a patient if you're lying to them about the diagnosis. Now look, I'm as picky about my tragedies as I am about a track list on a road trip playlist. If it doesn't feel earned, it just feels like the writer is a bully. So to pull off a successful autopsy, you have to realize that while a happy ending is often a rescue, a tragic ending is a crash. And yeah, The Godfather ends with the door closing on a woman's face. It's brutal, but it works because it's mechanical. It's the result of choices, not luck. If you're sitting at a keyboard trying to build a tragedy, you need the right tools. The first tool in the kit is called fatal inevitability. I call it the DNA rule. In a bummer movie, bad things happen to people, but in a tragedy, think Seven or The Wrestler or Uncut Gems, the hero is the bad thing. The ending isn't something that happens to the protagonist, it's something that the protagonist manufactures. Take Seven. Detective Mills is a good cop, but his DNA is explosive, righteous anger. John Doe doesn't beat him with a superpower, he just provides the stage for Mills' own temper to destroy him. It's the same pattern you see in the autopsy reports of other great cinematic deaths. In The Wrestler, Randy Robinson's DNA is the crowd. He'd rather be a god for 10 minutes than a lonely deli clerk for 30 years. In Uncut Gems, Howard Ratner's DNA is the hustle. He wins the bet and still dies because he physically cannot walk away. In Ex Machina, Caleb's DNA is empathetic survivorism. His own ego, the need to be the hero who understands the machine, is exactly what gets him trapped. In Nightcrawler, Lou Bloom's DNA is sociopathic professionalism. He wins and we lose because his DNA is perfectly adapted to a world that rewards monsters. So here's a writing tip. If your hero dies because a piano randomly falls on their head, that's a statistical anomaly. For a tragedy to stick, the audience needs to realize that it couldn't have gone any other way because of who they are. Next up, we have the moral mirror. In a happy ending, the kind we see in Paddington 2 or The Goonies, the writer is a friend giving you a hug. It's a restoration of order, like we mentioned in part 1, but in a tragedy, the writer isn't your friend. They're a witness testifying at a trial. The ending isn't supposed to make you feel good, it's supposed to make you feel responsible. Let's think about Do the Right Thing. Spike Lee doesn't give you a handshaking ending where everyone just laughs it off. He gives you a riot. He gives you a tragedy that reflects the boiling point of racial tension. If the movie ended with a civil conversation, we'd all go home thinking that the problem was solved. But because it ends in fire and grief, the movie acts as a mirror. It forces us to walk out onto the street and realize, hey, this tension exists in my city too. The tragedy is a warning system. Or how about we look at Parasite? If the Kim family had successfully scammed their way into a permanent happy ending, like the one in Back to the Future for example, it would have been a fun heist movie. But instead, it ends in a basement. It ends with a son writing a letter to a father he can never reach. The quote-unquote moral mirror here is about class. Bong Joon-ho uses the tragedy to show that the system is a closed loop. You don't leave that movie feeling sad for one man, you leave feeling sick about a whole society. So, our next writing tip, don't just kill the hero because it's edgy. Kill the hero or let the villain win because it exposes a leak in the world's plumbing. If the audience leaves feeling relieved, like the ending of The Breakfast Club, you've entertained them. If they leave feeling indignant, you've changed them. Up next, we have a specific kind of ending, the cruel clock, also known as the near miss, that's designed to make you want to rip your own hair out, if you have hair. It's not about the hero being evil, like in The Bad Seed. It's about the margin of error. It's that feeling where you want to pause the frame, reach into the screen, and just hold the characters back for 5 more seconds. Because if they had just waited, if they had just breathed, everything would be fine. It's the inverse of The Rescue that we see in It's a Wonderful Life or Toy Story 3. Take The Mist, for example. People argue about this ending all the time, but look at the anatomy of it. It's not a punishment of Thomas Jane's character. He made the most merciful, gut-wrenching choice a human being can make in that moment. The tragedy is the timing. The military arrives 60 seconds too late. If the mist had cleared a minute earlier, it's a happy ending. It's a restoration of order, but it cleared a minute later. So it's a life sentence. And we can consider this the Romeo and Juliet effect. If Romeo waits 3 seconds to drink the poison, Juliet wakes up and they go to lunch or whatever. That near miss is what creates the sting. It makes the audience feel the weight of fate. It's the realization that the universe doesn't care about your good intentions. It only cares about the clock. So, writing tip, if you want to maximize the pain, don't make the ending inevitable from page 1. Make it almost avoidable. Show the rescue party just over the hill, like in Independence Day, but have them arrive as the credits are starting to roll. The tragedy isn't that they failed, it's how close they came to succeeding. Now, look, not all tragedies are created equal. When we're performing an autopsy on a character's demise, we have to look at the value of the loss. Now, here in my little crumple paper dungeon, I categorize these into two types: the transaction and the void. Think of it like a business deal. If a character dies, what did their death buy? If it bought a better world, that's high tragedy. If it bought nothing but a cold realization, that's nihilistic realism. Now, both are valid, but only if the writer doesn't cheat. In high tragedy, the hero dies, but the idea survives. It's a transaction. Maximus dies in the dirt of the Colosseum in Gladiator, but he buys the dream of Rome. Logan dies in the woods, but he buys a future for the next generation of mutants. This is the bittersweet cousin of the happy ending. It's why we cheer through our tears in Braveheart or The Iron Giant. We feel the weight of the loss, but we're comforted by the earned win that the death facilitated. It's the blanket from part 1, just soaked in a little bit of blood. And then there's the other side, the low tragedy. This is where the death buys nothing. It's a statement on the randomness and cruelty of the world. Think about The Departed. Billy Costigan doesn't get a heroic monologue. He gets a bullet in the head in an elevator before he can even finish his sentence. Or look at Llewellyn Moss in No Country for Old Men. He's the protagonist we followed for 2 hours, and he dies off screen. These endings aren't trying to inspire you, they're trying to destabilize you. They want you to feel the same hollow, void-like sensation that you get from Uncut Gems or Requiem for a Dream. The point isn't that the hero saved the day, the point is that the day is indifferent to the hero. But here's where writers get into trouble. There's a third category, the cheap death. This is where a character dies solely for shock value, or because the writer didn't know how to finish the story. If a character's death feels like a punishment from the author rather than a result from their own DNA rule, the audience is going to reject it. Think about the backlash to an ending like the one in Remember Me, or certain shock deaths in many long-running TV series. If the tragedy isn't built into the foundation of the script, it feels like a betrayal of the writer-audience trust. An audience will forgive you for breaking their heart. They will even thank you for it, but they will never forgive you for wasting their time with a tragedy that hasn't been earned. So, writing tip, before you kill your hero, ask yourself, is this a harvest or a waste? If they're dying to save something, high tragedy, make the cost feel heavy. If they're dying because the world is cruel, low tragedy, make sure that cruelty has been the theme from scene 1. Don't pull the rug out just to see them fail. Pull the rug out because you've been showing us the holes in the floor the entire time. Now, when an autopsy is over, the medical examiner doesn't just sew the body up and forget about it. They write a report. They find a cause. They look for the why. And cinema works the same way. A happy ending, like the ones in The Goonies or Back to the Future, is a satisfying meal. You eat, you're full, you go home, but a tragic ending is a scar. It's a piece of narrative shrapnel that stays under your skin. We remember the sting of Chinatown or the crushing near miss of The Mist longer than we remember the restoration of order in 1,000 generic rom-coms. Why is that? Because pain is a better teacher than pleasure. The tragic ending is the filmmaker's way of performing a diagnostic on the audience. It asks you, now that you've seen the crash, now that you've seen the DNA of the failure, what are you going to do to make sure that doesn't happen in the real world? Now look, we need the blanket to keep us warm, but we also need the scalpel to keep us awake. We watch the fall of the hero in Seven or $1 Million Baby not because we're masochists, but because we want to feel the full, terrifying spectrum of what it means to be human. But look, life isn't always a rescue or a crash. Most of the time, it's a little bit of both. Sometimes you win the war, but you lose your soul. Sometimes you lose the girl, but you find yourself. That's the success cost matrix, the most difficult autopsy of them all. Next time, we're looking at the messy middle, the endings that leave you sitting in the theater wondering if you should be cheering or crying. So hopefully, I'll see you all in part 3, where we talk about the gray area ending. I hope you've been enjoying all of these videos so far. Let me know down in the comments if you are, and when you're done with that, don't forget to like this video, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell to be notified when new videos come out on this channel. You can follow me on Letterboxd. You can see what I'm watching when I'm watching it. You can go check out my podcast. I'll see you all next time.